That's a cute outfit. Did your husband give it to you?
That was amazing. Now that I'm in a Spidey mood, let's take a look back at what came before.
I find Spider-Man has such an interesting history when it comes to bringing him to the silver screen. Whether it's the late 80s project by Canon Films or the attempt by James Cameron, which was interesting to say the least. But in 2002, our favorite webhead would be brought to life and everything changed.
Now let's get into some background for this film, shall we?
Upon acquiring the rights, Sony and Columbia Pictures went right to work getting the movie off the ground and enlisted the help of Sam Raimi to make that work. Yes, that Sam Raimi. The same one responsible for Evil Dead and Darkman. The film released on May 3rd, 2002 to widespread critical acclaim, but the real question is, how well does it hold up? I mean, I love the movie, but I haven't seen it in a while, so I'm curious to see how my opinion will be reshaped by reviewing all of these films.
So with that, let's dive right in and look at Sam Raimi's Spider-Man.
All those memories just come flooding back to you. So we have our opening sequence, which I love so much. It's somewhat dated with the CG, but a huge part that makes it so memorable is the music by Danny Elfman, which is just sublime. But I'll get to him later. It kind of reminds me of the opening to Batman 89 a little bit, but overall a great start.
Who am I? You sure you want to know?
Nope.
This is where we meet our principal cast of characters, including Peter Parker, played by Tobey Maguire, Mary Jane Watson, played by Kirsten Dunst, Harry Osborn, played by James Franco, and finally Norman Osborn, played by Willem Dafoe. The kids are on their way to some science center that not only has special spiders, but also has the youngest of teachers and the oldest 40-year-old students ever.
We also get this.
Some spiders change colors to blend into their environment. It's a defense mechanism.
Trivia.
After some awkward teeny bopper back and forth, Peter is bit by the spider and we are transported to Oscorp for a subplot that doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. It's brought up a couple times after Norman becomes the Goblin, but after that it's just kind of brushed to the side with no real payoff or lasting consequences. Next we head to Queens where we meet Uncle Ben and Aunt May, played by the late great Cliff Robertson and Rosemary Harris respectively. Also, Peter comes home and is not feeling good.
You won't have a bite?
No thanks. Had a bite.
Did you get it? It was a joke. Also here we get some literal nightmare fuel.
All three spiders into these 15 genetically designed super spiders.
And some from Norman after that.
Soon enough, Pete wakes up to discover his overnight workout, and not that he transformed into Jack Black.
I'm totally freaking hot. Yeah!
At school, he starts to notice some other developments.
It's amazing that this was all on camera, but the awkward stares kind of ruined this scene now.
After seeing him web up some dude's lunch and watching people who should know who Spider-Man is right away, it's time for Peter to face his first real opponent in the trilogy.
Shitty background extras. What, you thought I was going to talk about this goober? Oh yeah, that's Flash Thompson, by the way.
So, in an alley, Peter comes to grip with his powers, and after learning he can climb walls, he does his best Woody run and jumps between rooftops.
Aside from the dated CG, it is kind of fun, and I like him testing his webs out.
Up, and away, Web! Shazam!
Ah, can't say that anymore. DC will sue.
After his first swing, Peter gets home
8 hours later.
and has a chat with MJ while taking out the trash, and this happens.
You're taller than you look.
I hunch.
I just want to get this out of the way, but I don't care at all for Peter and MJ's chemistry in this movie.
Whether it's the actors or dialogue given, I just don't see how these two have any interest in each other just from these average conversations. It's like I'm watching a brick wall talk to another brick wall.
I can have a better chat with this robot here.
Fuck you, punk bitch.
Speaking of performance, it makes me feel like I'm watching children talking, not two grown-ass adults who are going to be living in the big city. They do a better job in the other movies, but this needed another take. Or 12.
Sorry, back to the movie.
After showing how broke he is, Peter gets into the stuff that Batman Begins focused on, which is him designing his costume and honing his web skills.
I see what you did there, Raimi. I'm going to keep an eye out for you and your humor.
Teenager. Raging hormones, they never change.
Now we get the moment that would define the trilogy going forward.
Remember, with great power comes great responsibility.
Aside from Peter acting like a dick, this is a great scene between the two of them. I'm sure nothing bad will happen. Oh, right.
Next up is the wrestling scene with not only the king himself, Bruce Campbell, but also Bonesaw Randy Savage, may he rest in peace. We also see the first Spidey suit, which is pretty cool and accurate if you had no money. We also have this to remember.
That's a cute outfit. Did your husband give it to you?
See, it's funny because he looks like a woman.
Just to move things on a little, Human Spider beats Boner, doesn't get $3,000, it gets stolen by a Toby's sound-alike,
Thanks.
and Peter finds his uncle dying on the ground. Just want to note that Cliff is giving the performance of a lifetime, and it makes the scene much better and emotional. With Ben's death, Peter takes off to find his uncle's killer and exact his vengeance upon him.
Which he actually does.
I mean, the guy indirectly killed himself, but like Pete said in No Way Home, he got what he wanted. This part of the movie is really well done. Aside from Peter's weird, fake CGI mask, I like everything here, from the car chase, the sneaking around, the confrontation, and the realization. All of it works exceptionally well, and it brings the first act to a nice close. Well, with high school done and over with, it's time for Peter to show that $100,000 work of art and make his debut as the Spider-Man. And when there's a spider, there's a ball buster in J. Jonah Jameson, played by J.K. Simmons. He is fantastic in this role and brings the character to life in a way that I could have never imagined. After the introduction of Enrique, we cut back to Harry and Pete's new place, and the weird undertones of Norman are ever present.
The older I get, the more weirded out I am whenever I see Peter and Norman interacting.
Even during their first scene together, something just feels off. It's good for building their relationship up, only for it to fall apart when they're in costume, but something now is just telling me to stay far away from Norman whenever possible. Some more stuff happens, like Peter becoming a freelance photographer, Norman losing his position at Oscorp, and now we come to the Unity Day Festival, which is the first real battle between Spidey and the Green Goblin. It's a fun set piece, with the fight itself having its ups and downs, but I want to note some other things here.
Like Macy Gray. Remember her? Also, Stan Lee's here, and that just warms my heart.
Anyway, the wall crawler saves the day, sends Goblin crying wee 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 all the way home, and manages to rescue Mary Jane with his mannequin body and leaves her to trampoline jump into the distance. After another scene of the writers having no idea what to do with Harry, we meet Norman's evil half, and you can't chew the scenery better than Willem Dafoe here.
Maybe JK can, but Gobby puts a stop to that right away.
So, with knockout gas and jive talking, Spider-Man's reputation is at an all-time low, and after more lovey-dovey crap, MJ gets saved in an alley, and it leads to one of the most memorable kisses in movie history.
I think I put in the wrong version last time I watched this. don't think that's how that's supposed to go.
Anyway, Spidey leaves to avoid getting waterboarded more, and next we see a burning building with the wall crawler saving a baby. He goes back for this lady and...
Fucking ugly bitch.
So the two fight once again and move on to the best Thanksgiving movie according to some people.
If you ask me, superhero movie did it way better.
You have a scratch on your neck.
Yes, I met a girl on Craigslist. And you have a bruise on your neck.
I met a guy on Craigslist.
In short, truths are revealed and Green Meanie makes his moves to destroy Peter. First of which is attacking Aunt May in the weirdest way possible.
Finish it! Finish it!
The second way is by kidnapping MJ off screen, leading us into the final battle. Gotta say, the bridge scene dragged on a bit too long for my liking, but the fight inside the abandoned building is just badass. So Peter kicks the shit out of Norman, reveals his identity, and jumps out of the way for Goblin to kill himself.
Oh. Man. How Should Have Ended really did have it right.
There's only one way this is gonna go down. It happens every time. We'll fight for a bit, you'll tear my mask, but in the end, I'm just gonna leap out of the way and you're gonna do something that makes you kill yourself.
Now we have the ending at Norman's funeral with Harry vowing revenge, MJ confessing her love for Peter, and Peter rejecting it to keep her safe. With one final swing, the story of Spider-Man is completed. I'm gonna go on a limb and say this is the perfect superhero origin movie. All the beats hit right and it does a great job of establishing the motive and learning curve for the powers of both hero and villain.
Maybe more so for the hero, but you catch my drift.
The first act was mainly about Peter, but it has some of my favorite moments of the movie. Second act is all Goblin and I'm all here for it. As soon as Norman discovers Peter's secret is when I think the movie goes downhill slightly, but it has its standout moments. For better and for worse.
You mess with me, you mess with New York! You mess with one of us, you mess with all of us!
In short, the story is a great recreation of Amazing Fantasy 15 and a really fun Spider-Man vs. Green Goblin movie.
Anyway, let's talk about the other stuff for this movie.
Let's go over the cast because we have some real standouts. You'll find out if it'll be good or not. Let's start with Toby, who does a good job here. He nails the nerdy side of Peter's personality. He can be a little bit much of a goody two-shoes in some scenes, like when he's talking to Aunt May and such, but he generally does a good job with what he's given. Not to mention, he can have some badass moments in costume. Willem Dafoe steals the show here. When he puts the mask on and the voice changes, it becomes his movie and he's great to watch. He really fits the Silver Age comic book tone that they're going for, and I'm so glad this isn't the last we see of him. Kirsten Dunst is... okay? There's elements I like with the broken home life and her hiding her true personality, but my issues mainly stem from the ditzy personality and... this.
Damn, she screams more than Vicky Vale. We got it.
James Franco is kind of there. It's extremely apparent they had no idea what to do with him. He has some really good scenes with Willem, but besides that, there's just nothing here. Just want to mention that J.K. Simmons is great in general, and both Aunt May and Uncle Ben do their roles wonderfully as well. Action is very hit or miss. There are good set pieces, but it just flip-flops randomly and it becomes distracting. CGI is not aged well. Like, not at all. You can definitely tell when it's during night. I want to say it's a product of its time, but even I can't say that. The score by Danny Elfman is just incredible. Just about every track stands the test of time and is one of my favorite superhero scores ever composed. One of my favorite tracks has to be the piece when Peter is talking to Aunt May after the graduation. As far as some other things, pacing is good all throughout. We get a taste of that Raimi camera work and it is glorious, and the costumes are really good. I even like Green Goblins.
Let's finish this video off by giving you my final thoughts.
Spider-Man 2002 is a wonderful time and is still a blast to come back to. While some elements like the dated CG, the inconsistent action, and the mixed performances can be a tough pill to swallow, the world created by Raimi and company really sucks you in and keeps you enthralled throughout the experience. I'm surprised how well this actually held up, and the best part is that it can only get better from here. Well, we'll see with this one. This is required viewing for anybody who likes the superhero genre, and I don't care if it's on DVD, Blu-ray, digital, VHS, fucking UMD, just watch it. Still amazes me that it's been over 20 years since this movie released. This, along with the 60s show and the animated series, is what got me to love the character as a toddler, and that love has persisted to this very day. Whether it was reading a random issue or playing one of the various games, my childhood was consumed by the webhead. Some of my earliest memories were just running around the backyard in a mask pretending I was swinging around Manhattan. I love this character, and I'm looking forward to what the future has in store for the wall crawler.
Well, that was certainly different from reviewing a video game. I hope everyone enjoyed my style. Sorry to go on a tangent, but remember when movies had a full screen and a widescreen version? The early 2000s was such a fascinating time. I don't really need to tell you what's next, but with that, I hope you all have a great night. Thank you all so much for watching, and take care of yourselves.
Pizza time.
Spider-Man 2.
I think it's fair to say that Spider-Man was a massive success, gaining over $800 million worldwide at the box office. It was not only the third highest grossing film of 2002, but also the highest grossing superhero movie at the time and the sixth highest grossing movie ever, before being beat out by other films. With its success and Spidey's popularity being at an all-time high, a sequel was inevitable, and shortly after the release of the first movie, Sam Raimi got to work right away, and man did he have his work cut out for him. Not only did he have to top himself from what he had done previously, but there were issues with maybe having to recast the fucking main lead of the franchise. Thankfully that didn't happen, and the film would end up releasing in the early summer of 2004. I have very vivid memories of seeing this in the theater, but I did have the VHS, which might have been a Christmas gift, along with the chicken pox.
Being a child was fun. Anyway, let's dive right in and see the story unfold. I guess that's one way to start this. It's been a while.
Firstly, I want to look at our opening titles just for a second and give some appreciation to it. Instead of the cool blue from the first movie, we now have a fiery red, which is a nice contrast and just looks cool. Also, we have an abridged recap that is beautifully illustrated by Alex Ross himself. This is one of the things I like that remains consistent among the trilogy, and also for newer viewers, they aren't entirely lost upon watching. Now we really begin with our hero Peter Parker, played again by Tobey Maguire, staring at a billboard of Mary Jane when all of a sudden...
Parker! Parker! No, stop!
Ooh, he is not going to feel good in the morning.
In actuality, he's late to his job as a pizza delivery boy, where he has to deliver 8 pizzas to some no-name company that doesn't matter. Him riding there on his bike doesn't work out, so he suits up in his Spidey outfit, and now it's a mission from the movie tie-in game. On the way, he saves 2 kids and webs a slice from some dude, and after the line that will live in infamy...
Pizza time.
He didn't make the deadline, and as a result, he is fired. After an interaction with Jonah, performed by J.K. Simmons again, we head over to Empire State University and meet a character who was alluded to previously, which is Dr. Kirk Connors, played by Dylan Baker.
Look at you, Peter. Your grades have been steadily declining. You're late for class. You always appear exhausted.
I don't trust him with the Halloween candy, if you catch my drift.
That's right. There's another tradition. Very important. Always check your candy.
Next we head to Aunt May's house, where we come to find out it's Peter's birthday, with Mary Jane and Harry Osborn in attendance, both played once again by Kirsten Dunst and James Franco respectively. After a sad scene with May, we meet MJ in the backyard for a moment that feels all too familiar.
Oh boy, yeah.
Oh boy, yeah. What?
As you can see, very deep stuff.
After we see Pete's pad and his landlord,
Rent!
we finally meet our villain from this movie, who is known as Dr. Otto Octavius, played by Alfred Molina, and things seem to head off really well.
Parker, now I remember you. You're Connor's student. Tells me you're brilliant. He also tells me you're lazy.
It gets better for them, and with a body for the kill count and some Parker luck, it's time to see the play, and let's just say that the trip over doesn't go so splendid.
Well, at least we got more Bruce Campbell.
Stand in the...
So Peter is feeling all kinds of emotions at the moment, and while swinging, he starts to lose a grip on his powers, causing him to walk home with what remains of his bike. Next we see him call MJ and try to apologize for what happened, but it doesn't go over so well.
That, children, is what you call a payphone. Yeah, I know, it sounds like a hard concept, but they did indeed exist before smartphones and the like.
We cut to the fusion experiment, and this is where we see the real villains of this movie.
I am a surgeon! I am a surgeon! Dr. Hahn!
This was such a fantastic reveal, and it's fun to point out that most of what you see here was puppeteer work for each individual arm, and it's amazing. Now on to the main event, which starts off well enough, but the problems rear their ugly head. Within seconds, everything goes wrong, causing Peter to swoop in and save the day.
Anyone else finding bratty James Franco hilarious?
I'm in charge here! It's my money! I'm in charge!
So because the chip was fried on the back of his neck, the arms are fused to his body, and at the hospital we get the most Sam Raimi moment ever in these movies. So after the massacre, Otto leaves the hospital and gets a new name from JJ himself.
What are we gonna call this guy?
Dr. Octopus.
That's crap.
Science Squid?
Crap.
Doctor Strange.
That's pretty good. But it's taken.
Huh. So that's how Sam Raimi got the job for the MCU.
With a little persuasion, Octavius vows to rebuild the machine, and after some bank hijinks with Aunt May...
Ow! Oh, ow!
Doc Ock arrives to collect some dollar coins, and it leads to our first battle between our hero and villain.
Shame on you. All these years later, and I don't know why the arms have blades in them.
So, with the power of teamwork, Aunt May is the victor, and now we see the worst night of Peter's life.
After all these years, he's nothing to me but an empty seat.
That right.
Beautiful Miss Mary Jane Watson has just agreed to marry me.
Oh no. No!
That would be a rough one, not gonna lie.
While Otto rebuilds, Peter has an internal struggle and decides that Spider-Man is no more, also leading to one of the most iconic shots from not just the comics, but Cape films period. Now we have a montage of Peter getting his life together and being a total dork in the process.
Excellent work today, Parker. Keep it up.
Nothing's worrying.
That freeze frame is so fucking corny, but I love it. Such a perfect end, and I can't get enough of it.
Next, Peter heads to MJ's play to prove that he isn't an empty seat, and we get some back and forth between the two of them.
Punch me, I bleed.
Soon enough, Jameson gets possession of the Spidey suit, spreading the news of his retirement, while Pete has a sit-down with his aunt.
Uncle Ben was killed that night for being the only one who did the right thing.
Just powerful.
There's no joke here. It just is.
Now we remember Harry as a character, and after a little obsession, Ock arrives demanding more tritium. Harry won't give it unless he brings Spider-Man to him.
Don't hurt Peter!
Oh yeah, nice friend, after you just ratted his ass out.
So next we see a burning building with Peter rushing in after learning a little girl is trapped in there. This shows that even without the powers and the mask, Pete is a true hero. The girl is reunited with her family, and this is just a fantastic moment overall.
Trying to think of the last time heroes actually saved people in these movies. I bet you can't.
I like that throughout the movie we see instances of Peter wanting to help, and even here he doesn't save everybody. But it just goes to show that Raimi really understood the character, and I applaud him for that. After some cake. No, not that cake. Peter goes back to Aunt May to get some closure.
I love you, Peter. So very, very much.
With a very meaningful speech by May, this motivates Peter to try out his powers again, to not great results.
My back! Oh, my back!
20 years later and it still bugs him.
Oh, there it goes. You okay? Oh, my back.
Now we hit up a coffee shop with Pete and MJ, and this happens.
Kiss me.
Kiss you.
I need to know something. Just one kiss.
Let's not forget that she's getting married to this man right here.
Well, before any makeout sesh can happen, Doc Ock shows up threatening Peter's life and kidnapping Mary Jane in the process. Since Otto is expecting Spider-Man, Peter gets his suit back and rushes over to stop him.
Where is she?
Oh, she'll be just fine. Let's talk.
Yeah, I think the time for that is non-existent.
Now we've come to the epic train fight, and what more can I say about this sequence that has been said already? From the choreography to the camera work, the set piece, and the intense theme playing in the background. Not to mention the visual effects all coming together to make one of the greatest action scenes in a superhero movie. There's nothing to mock or complain about. It just speaks for itself, and even my words can't do it justice.
So beautiful.
So the train becomes out of control, and things are about to get worse.
Ow. Damn movie.
Using his smarts, Spidey saves the train, and it leads to a great moment with the people of New York and their hero.
He's just a kid. No older than my son.
Not cry. You are.
Well, Doc Ock ruins this sweet gesture, and he brings Spidey to Harry for him to kill.
Pete. No. It can't be.
Oh no, my best friend who I treated like shit throughout the entire movie.
Now we've reached the final encounter, which is a great fight between them, but when Spidey tries to stop the fusion reactor again, it doesn't pan out. So Peter has to get Otto in touch with his humanity in order to prevent the destruction of the city.
Listen to me now. Listen to me now.
It's what Sony keeps saying when they announce random villain movies that we don't care about.
It's decided that they must drown it in the river, with Otto sacrificing himself to do so. Also, Mary Jane finds out Peter's identity and...
Sorry, I just couldn't resist.
So Mary Jane is saved, Octavius dies a noble man, Peter tells her that they can't be together, and what does she do?
This poor man. Can somebody get him like a cookie or something?
So in Peter's doorway, MJ tells him that she is taking the risk and wants to be with him. With one last kiss, Pete rushes into the city fighting crime while Mary Jane watches on, ending the story of Spider-Man 2. If the first movie is the perfect superhero origin, then this is the perfect superhero sequel. It expands the story in all the right ways and raises the stakes in a way that some other films in this franchise wishes they could achieve. One of the things I'm glad that it focused on is the struggle between Peter's dual identities. This is a classic Spider-Man trope that feels like a necessity for any adaptation to tackle at some point. The only thing I could never understand even till this day is, why does Peter lose his powers? Is it self-doubt? Was it all in his head? He says an existential crisis in No Way Home, and that doesn't really help me either. Or that could be because I'm stupid. Besides that, we have a great narrative that really understands the source material and really does a great job of being faithful while also making it distinct. Not to mention being an incredible follow-up to what's come before.
Now we move on to the other stuff for this movie. I don't know why I did that hand motion. Like I said, it's been a while.
We're going to start with the cast because everyone is on their A game here. First we have Toby, who does a much better job this time around. He still has that boy next door, nice guy mentality, but he feels a lot closer to what Peter Parker should be in my eyes. You can really feel the dilemma he's going through from choosing this lifestyle, and it's upsetting seeing him at his lowest in this series. Even in costume, he has some great moments to shine with both his playful and serious sides.
Here's your change!
Alfred Molina is amazing in this movie. He's both part sincere and just an absolute menace under the influence. The Arm's basically deciding his every action is kinda dumb, but it's a certain type of stupid I can get down with, and it makes sense for the story. I like him just as much as Green Goblin, and I'm glad he also got another chance to come back. Kirsten I'm mixed about. Acting-wise she's good, but for her arc? I don't know if they wanted me to like her or not. Like, I understand being fed up with Peter's back and forth bullshit, but marrying some dude just to make him jealous is mighty low in my eyes.
I guess John missed the bullet there. Did anybody make sure he got his cookie? Cheer him up.
James Franco is about the same here. He has a motivation, but he's barely in the movie to do anything. He's either getting pushed around mentally or physically on occasion. Well, at least they're set up for something greater. Flying Snowboard Man. Also, just before we move on, I want to note that Rosemary and JK do a fantastic job here and is improved from the last movie. Action is 100 times better than previously. From the bank fight to the final battle, there are some stellar set pieces on display here. Need I remind you of the train sequence? Effects have also gotten a major upgrade. While some shots can look uncanny, the CGI looks much more believable and not like it's Toy Story 1. In beta. Gotta give credit to the practical effects also, because they're also on the top of their game, especially with the mechanical arms. Danny Elfman delivers once again with the score, and also his theme for Knock Knock is just sublime.
Alright, time to put this video to bed with my final thoughts.
Spider-Man 2 is a phenomenal film, an incredible sequel, and is not only one of the best Spider-Man movies, but is one of the best comic book movies, period. Everything is pretty much pitch perfect, and while there are some issues with character and plot, it hardly detracts from the whole experience. From the story, characters, action, effects, pacing, cinematography, tone, it all comes together beautifully and is something I can come back to wherever and whenever and still never tire of it. If you somehow have not watched this masterpiece, then what the hell's the matter with you? Do yourself a favor and see this if you have any attachment to the character. This is the quintessential Spider-Man experience that needs to be seen by everyone. Drop everything and see it because it's worth it.
There's only one place to go from here, and next time we're going to look at Spider-Man 3. Until then, I'll see you all next time. Thank you all so much for watching, and take care of yourselves.
I'm gonna put some dirt in your eye.
The holidays. A time where you can spend with family and enjoy the richness of... Oh, shit. How's it going, everyone? And happy holidays! We're finishing off the Holy Trilogy today, while also talking about one of the more controversial Spider-Man movies, Spider-Man 3.
So we have a first film that is a fantastic origin story and the spark that paved the way for the look and feel of the 2000 superhero movie. Next is an incredible sequel that elevates what came previously and is regarded as one of the best films in this entire genre. The next logical step is to cap things off with a third movie that is a good bookend which wraps up all the storylines in a nice little bow, while also raising the stakes in a way that's thematic and fitting. If only things went that smoothly. As expected with the success of Spider-Man 2, Sony immediately greenlit the next installment with Raimi and crew getting straight to work. The plan was to not only continue with the cliffhanger of Harry becoming a goblin, but also introduce the Sandman and Vulture as the main villains.
But Sony being Sony, they wanted something a little more... venomous.
They figured that Sam was just picking his favorite villains instead of listening to what the fans wanted, which is kinda bullshit. But as a kid who was super into the black suit and wanted to see more of it, I can understand why they wanted to include this in the narrative. So with having to shoehorn that in and having an arduous film shoot, the movie would release in May of 2007 and well, it made a shit ton of money, being the most profitable of the trilogy, but reviews were mixed and still are to this day.
Makes me wonder where I'm gonna fit into that conversation. Kinda random, but remember the marketing for this? Either walking into Toys R Us or seeing that Burger King commercial. 2007 was a great time to be a Spider-Man fan.
I remember seeing this film in theaters, and I've seen this movie countless times over the years, going from loving it, to hating it, to being down the middle for me. Now it's time to revisit this and see how I feel today. Which is just a standard review, I guess.
Alright, whatever. Let's get into the movie.
Just like the last two videos, we're starting off by talking about the intro, which like before is a recap to previous events. Instead of the Alex Ross artwork, we have some clips from each film, which is fine. I like that the symbiote is taking over everything and you can see these sand particles flying around. It's probably my least favorite introduction in the trilogy, but what we have here isn't bad. Next we transition to some narration from our boy Peter Parker, played once more by Tobey Maguire. We learn that things have been going great for our hero, with the city starting to like him, and his personal life also going really steady with his schoolwork and relationship with MJ, played again by Kirsten Dunst. While at a show, we also see another familiar face with Harry Osborn, played once again by James Franco, and who we'll catch up with a bit later. After catching up backstage and a little goblin tease, our two lovebirds head over to Central Park to go stargazing, and while making out, a meteorite crashes right next to them without either of them noticing or hearing it. Inside is this black substance, and as they're leaving, it decides to hitch a ride with them.
Oh, well, isn't that convenient?
Next, we meet one of our new villains for this movie, which is Flint Marko, played by Thomas Hayden Church, who is avoiding the cops. He comes back to this apartment to not only see his daughter again, but also change into something very iconic.
He wanted some bread too, but no dice on that.
Now we catch up with Aunt May, played again by Rosemary Harris, in a scene which kinda drags a bit for my liking.
It was was a beautiful day, and he said, let's swim to the island. And at the island, we found a perfect spot by an old tree. And we lay down and looked up at the sky. And then he said,
Sorry.
Soon enough for riding home, then crazy armored snowboarder comes out of nowhere and starts to kick our ass. This Willem Dafoe wannabe is Harry, unsurprisingly, who has dubbed himself as the new Goblin, according to marketing, and the two of them go at it. This is a pretty enjoyable fight scene. It can be a little hard making out what's happening at times, but the camera work really shines here. I love that Peter is just worrying about the ring, and the stuff in the alley is fun too. After almost decapitating his best friend, Peter takes Harry to the hospital after the CPR fails, and you'll see what dumb plot contrivance they'll have for him later. Instead, we're going to cut back to Flint being chased by the police, and who falls into a super collider, and the scientists there never bother checking before turning it on.
There's a change in the silicon mass.
Yeah, it's probably a bird. It'll fly away when we fire it up.
You think any of them realized it was their fault? Like, later in the movie when he turns into that giant sand monster, did any of them watch the news and maybe have an idea that they were responsible for that?
Did I do that?
Back at the emergency room, we learn that Harry has a bit of short-term memory loss and has pretty much forgotten everything that happened in the last two movies. This is so stupid, especially when we could have gotten some really great stuff with Harry's development in this movie. He could have learned the truth about his father, and that might have impacted his dynamic with Peter going forward. Maybe he would have become a hero, or stayed a villain, or just something other than making him a blank slate. This is especially more tragic since the last two movies barely did anything with him. This was just such a cop-out that is more or less here to push him out of the story for a while. Now we get Flint reforming his body, and I don't even need to talk about how great this scene is, just watch. With his new lease on life, he dedicates to using his powers to help his daughter and officially becomes the Sandman. After an exchange with Pete and MJ, we officially meet Gwen Stacy, played by Bryce Dallas Howard, who we saw a little of earlier. But a crane goes out of control, so she needs to be rescued. On the ground, her father arrives, who is Captain George Stacy, played by James Cromwell, and her boyfriend is also there, Eddie Brock, played by Topher Grace. And man, what a meeting of the two.
Who are you?
It's Brock, sir. Edward Brock Jr. I work at the Daily Bugle. And I'm dating your daughter.
You know, given the circumstances, this really isn't all that bad.
Spidey gets to the scene, and with some impressive effects and flips, he saves Gwen and all is well. Besides this pest.
Now on, I am going to be taking shots at you for the Bugle. So, smile. Are you smiling? Just kidding.
Now we're back here at the Daily Bugle, where a comedy ensues, and the one paying for it is J. Jonah Jameson, once again graced by J.K. Simmons' perfect performance. Besides having to put up with Ted Raimi, he also has to deal with medication.
Time to take your pill. Not that one. Not that one.
He's just waiting for his chance to conquer the Earth. And the MK universe, weirdly enough.
Stop, please. Don't hit me with water.
After a Stan Lee cameo, B-Ball, and MJ's career going to hell, Spidey is set to receive a key to the city, and Pete's ego is on full display.
Go
ahead, lay one on me.
Really?
Yeah, they'll love it.
Somebody's sleeping on the couch tonight, that's for sure.
Festivities are cut short as the Sandman is causing a ruckus, first by attacking some officers and trying to rob an armored truck. This leads to another fun action sequence between him and Spider-Man, and afterwards Peter asks the important questions.
Where do all these guys come from?
It makes me wonder who else he's fought. Is Puma canon to Toby?
You guys know what to do!
Puma? When did you get into the stolen car business?
Now to attend a dinner reservation, and after seeing Bruce Campbell again, things get ugly real fast.
Let me ask you something. When you kissed her, who was kissing her? Spider-Man or Peter?
Next, Peter is called down to the police station where he learns it was actually Marco who killed his uncle, and this is just a pointless retcon. I get the idea and how it plays into the message this movie's trying to spell out, but we don't need every villain to have some personal connection to the hero. A bad guy can just be a bad guy and we'll be fine with it. That's like if in Infinity War we found out Thanos was responsible for having Tony captured by the Ten Rings. It just wouldn't make sense. Like I said, it's just stupid and we didn't need this. So now Peter's full attention is on stopping him, and while he's sleeping, the black goo from earlier starts to attach itself, and we get introduced to one of the greatest things ever.
Where am I?
Hey, nice callback.
Parker, how on earth did you get in the middle of Manhattan, hanging upside down in a costume you've never seen before?
Oh, the black suit. Even though it isn't the best looking, I still have a soft spot for this version. Anybody that says the classic look couldn't have been done is just straight lying. Just put the honeycomb pattern on it and call it a day.
Plus, cosplayers have been making that work for years. Idiots.
Anyway, like I said, I enjoyed this rendition, even if it's just the regular suit dipped in black. I dig the bigger lenses, and the new logos look pretty cool. I'm happy that we got to see this suit come back for Marvel's Spider-Man 2.
Alright, I'm done rambling. Back to the story.
After a visit to Dr. Connor's class, Peter comes home to find that Marco has robbed a bank, so he decides to take the cool new suit in order to bring him down. While at the scene, that weasel Eddie arrives and he gets what's coming to him.
See you, chump.
I was tempted to add the fart and the Scooby laugh, but nah.
In the subway tunnels, the two get acquainted once again, and it leads to the next big brawl, and it's a good one too. From the camera work to that iconic shot, which is just brutal. It's a short bout that I wish could have gone on a bit longer, but I'm happy with how it turned out.
You think the sound of the trains would affect the suit, but whatever, plot armor.
At the bottom, Spidey rips open a pipe or something and decides to kill Flint with water.
Good riddance.
You ever notice that useless swinging shot? Also, seeing Peter get his emo hair will always be funny to me.
Back at the apartment, Peter decides to be a real bully to Mr. Dickovich.
Leave me alone.
Give me rent.
You'll get your rent when you fix this damn door!
Anyway, he lays off the suit and goes to tell Aunt May what happened.
It's like a poison. It can take you over. Before you know it, turn us into something ugly.
Next, we hang out with MJ for a minute as she calls up Harry to meet with him. Meanwhile, Peter is standing by the phone, and we see why Mr. Dickovich is the best character ever.
If it's a woman you're calling, then you say, "You're a good woman, I'm a good man."
Back with the duel, they cook a meal and have a smooch. Mary Jane storms out, and Harry gets his memories back from a mirror.
What have you done? Avenge me!
I mean, it's not the craziest thing in the world.
With his father's words, Harry's back on his revenge quest, and his first stop is to MJ's apartment to put in a request. She calls Peter to meet her at a bridge, and it doesn't go well.
No. Please. Please don't say that.
I can't watch this without being reminded of how it should have ended.
What do you mean? But I love you. You love me. And the ring. And your red hair. I'm Spider-Man.
At a coffee shop, Harry meets with Pete to let him know that he's the other guy and that he really likes pie. I don't know why I rhymed there.
How's the pie?
So good. Also, he clearly just ducked under the table as soon as the truck went by.
After a little staring into nothing, he's tempted by the black suit and goes over to confront Osborn Jr. After being provoked, the two go at it, and this is probably my favorite fight in the movie. It's a tense and visceral fight, which we haven't really seen since the first movie. I like that it moves over to the Goblin Room, and there's something hilarious about seeing James Franco thrown around like a rag doll. Everything about this is great, from the back and forth between them and the moves that are on display. With one last attempt, Harry throws a pumpkin bomb at Peter, which blows up in his face. Literally. While on a stroll, Pete comes across a photo taken by Brock and makes a scene at the Bugle. Turns out it's a fake, and JJ fires Eddie on the spot and prints a retraction.
Man, what a douche. Hope he doesn't come back and turn into a super... Oh, wait.
Next, we have the greatest montage in the history of mankind, with Bully Maguire on full display and the most awkward dance moves in cinema. Now the movie remembers Sandman, and Peter takes Gwen out on a date to a jazz club where MJ works at. He decides to showboat a little and make her feel jealous, and it just gets worse from there.
Gave it the old Janet Van Dyne. Okay, I know, it's a bit too far. Although, not according to the Ultimate Universe anyway.
Being distraught, Pete heads over to the church to first give us the poster for the movie, and he tries to take the suit off with no results at first. Eddie is also at the same church, and this happens.
I come before you today, humbled and humiliated, to ask you for one thing.
I want you to kill Peter Parker.
So is Jesus a hitman in the Raimi verse?
After bumping into the bell, Peter starts to get the ooze off of him. As a result, it falls towards the bottom floor, bonding itself to Eddie, transforming him into the monstrous Venom.
I am doing everything in my power not to mention Eminem. To the dismay of Walter.
After a shower and a heart-to-heart with Aunt May, we see that Venom has tracked down Sandman, where he not only poses an alliance to kill Spider-Man, but we also get a full look at the Lethal Protector in all of his glory, with his face peeled back. Just from a general design, I like what they did here. I dig the messy web pattern, and the eyes look good with the overall size and shape. A lot of people complained about his size, but I don't mind it much. Would I have preferred a larger Venom? Absolutely. But for the context of the narrative, it's fine. Also, he isn't as small and as frail as people make him out to be. One thing I can't stand, however, is the logo is so muted and it blends into the suit. I can barely tell it's there half the time, and it's just distracting, especially when he's just standing around. Also, not a big fan of his screech and the face peel. Well, I think you can all take a guess on how I feel about that. Just getting into the final battle, Mary Jane is once again kidnapped, and after watching some news footage, Peter is prompted to dig out the old red and blues to go save her. Before arriving, he heads over to Harry's to try and get his help, and...
Damn!
It doesn't pan out, and all of a sudden this happens.
The night your father died, I cleaned his wound. The blade that pierced his body came from his glider, but there's no question that he died by his own hand.
Man, what a perfect time to just drop that on Harry, right?
Anyway, Spidey arrives at the construction site, and this is where the fight really starts. We have a little duel in the air, which is nice, but then we also have a fucking sand kaiju that is actually kinda rad. The first section of the battle is pretty cool. I like that Peter still makes an effort even though the odds are completely not in his favor at all. But while all hope seems lost, a pumpkin bomb comes out of nowhere, stumbling the sand monster as the new goblin joins in to help Spider-Man. The second phase starts with Harry focusing on Marco, with Peter jumping in every once in a while. We also see the two friends working together to save Mary, which is nice after all the shit that happened during the last movie and this. Soon enough, the Sandman crumbles, which only leaves one obstacle in the form of Brock. No, not that Brock. Spider-Man gets a bit tied up in all the shenanigans, with Harry swooping in not really getting the point.
I stand corrected. He got 2 of them.
With a core memory unlocked, and with the power of pipes, Peter separates the symbiote from Eddie, but when it turns into a behemoth, his response is to blow it the fuck up. Once the dust settles, Flynn comes in and tells Peter what really happened with his uncle, with it boiling down to him accidentally pulling the trigger. Peter forgives him and Marco parts off into the sunrise, never to be seen again. Until No Way Home.
Sir. So what? Y'all just gonna stand here and act like I ain't butt-ass naked?
I am.
Next we get one last moment with our trio of friends as Harry succumbs to his wounds and dies in their arms. After the funeral, we cut back to the jazz club with MJ performing, with Peter arriving offering his hand at the two of them embracing. The last shot is of them slow dancing with hope that they can rekindle their relationship, ending the story of Spider-Man 3 and bringing the Holy Trilogy to a close. The story overall is really enjoyable, but it isn't perfect. This has been pointed out by literally everyone, but it's stuffed with plotlines and characters fighting for screen time. I never thought of this before, but now that I'm looking at this critically, it became more apparent as I continued watching.
You know, just for fun, let's count as many as we can.
Let's see, we have Spidey's ego, MJ's career in shambles and the strain it takes on her and Peter's relationship, Harry taking his revenge for what happened as well as his amnesia, Flint Marco becoming the Sandman and him also trying to save his daughter, the retcon of what happened to Uncle Ben, Eddie and Pete's fight for the staff job at the Daily Bugle, Peter intending on marrying the woman he loves, as well as dealing with the symbiote and the repercussions of that. I'm probably forgetting some, but that is a lot to juggle for one 2-hour movie. There is definitely stuff that adds nothing, and if it were up to me, I would have kept it at the main trio of friends and the Sandman. Not including the retcon. In a weird way, however, I can't imagine Spider-Man 3 without anything cut out. I can't explain it, but I can still watch it perfectly fine as is despite its flaws. There's enough there to keep me engaged, but I can now look at it and point out what's wrong with it.
With the story out of the way, let's get into the other stuff on display here.
Like always, let's go over the cast first. Tobey Maguire is still good as always. He still portrays that nerdy quality to him, and I like the idea that he just became a cocky asshole between films. When he gets the black suit, he really becomes a menace, but instead of feeling concerning, it's more hilarious than anything. Kirsten Dunst is the best she's been in these movies. It's a little upsetting seeing her in a bad spot with her Broadway stunt going to shit and her going back to being a waitress.
Or maybe that's just karma from all the shit that happened in the last movie.
Even when she argues with Peter, I'm on her side, especially when it came to that dinner scene talking about the kiss. Her kissing Harry wasn't necessary, but I'm glad they didn't go any further and that she knew it was a mistake. I know that I've had a lot of criticisms with Mary Jane over the course of these reviews, and I just want to make clear that I don't hate the character. I just don't like what they've done with her in a lot of instances. James Franco is also at his best for the right and wrong reasons. I like that he has more screen time and things to do, but most of his plot is kind of wasted. They follow through with his revenge, which is fine, but it's immediately wasted once he forgets the last 2 movies happen. And even when he does remember, his butler comes in and tells him something he could have done at any point before his face became Swiss cheese. As far as his acting, there are some emotional beats, but other moments he clearly smoked a joint before filming the scene, and it's extremely apparent.
How's the pie?
So good. Sorry, I needed an excuse to play that clip again.
Thomas Hayden Church does a really good job here. I feel the struggle he's going through with his sick daughter, and for that reason, he's probably my favorite version of the character. Besides the fact he's responsible for Uncle Ben's death, I like this more sympathetic take on Flint. Topher Grace is trying his best here, but even his performance can't save this interpretation of the character. Besides my issues with Venom himself, Topher's acting feels like he's trying so hard to impress, which is the point, I guess, but it doesn't do much for me. I can appreciate the idea of doing a mirrored Peter Parker without any of the morals, but every time I see him on screen, I wish he wasn't there. I hate his jokes, I don't like his personality, and even when there are serious moments, I can't take him seriously. Rosemary and JK, you can already guess what I'm gonna say.
I just don't want to repeat myself from the last two videos. Oh yeah, I forgot the Stacy's War thing in this movie.
Action is good, but not as good as the last movie. Spider-Man 2 raised the bar in a way that it would be hard to match, and I feel this movie doesn't quite hit that mark. Not to say that they're bad, they're not. I even like them more than what the first movie had. But like I said, they don't impact me on a level previously showcased. On the opposite end, I think the effects are at their peak in this film. It has aged to some degree, but given the time frame, they still beat the last two movies in this series, and still hold up nicely today. The score by Christopher Drake I'm very indecisive about. When it comes to recreating pieces from the earlier movies, I'm not as generous for. It sounds very close to what I know, but there's always been something off about it that's kept me from enjoying them much. As for the new compositions, like for the Black Suit and the Sandman, I think this is where it really shines, and actually one of my favorite tracks is the last song you hear in the movie. In general, I don't hate what he's done, but it's off just enough to keep me from really loving it.
Alright, time to end this video and bring this trilogy of reviews to a close.
Spider-Man 3, in my humble opinion, is a good time that, even though it has some major problems, is something that fans of the character can watch and enjoy on its own merits. Is this one of the worst comic book movies ever? Not even close, and it isn't even the worst Spider-Man movie by a large margin. I believe it succeeds in wrapping up storylines across the trilogy and ending on a note that feels relatively satisfying. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's perfect because it isn't. Certain characters feel underdeveloped, and a number of plotlines feel tacked on and pointless or go in a direction that doesn't work for what they were building up to. Regardless, I can still have a seat and have a pleasant time watching for what it is, but if you don't feel the same, that's totally fine. I recommend another watch through at some point, because who knows, you might be surprised with how you feel by the end.
So I'm kind of doing a little bit of an unscripted bit here, but I just kind of wanted to talk about how much, the Raimi Trilogy means to me, and how much, I'm glad that it's, its impact is still felt across Spider-Man media today, from, Into the Spider-Verse and Spider-Man PS4, and, it's amazing to me that we even got Tobey back in the first place for No Way Home, so... for all the years that I've been watching these movies, I've always come back to the Raimi Trilogy, even after, going through the Andrew Garfield era, and, we're still continuing the Tom Holland kind of phase, if you will, but, no matter how many movies come out, and, whether they're good or not, I can always come back to these three movies and, still enjoy them for what they are, and, they still inspire me to do what I'm doing now. So, to Tobey Maguire, the whole cast, Sam Raimi, all the writers, and everybody involved with this trilogy, I just want to say thank you so much for, making a huge impact on my life. You're probably never going to see this, but, that's fine. Whatever. Man, I am spidered out at the moment. So I think next time, when we review movies, I think we're going to move on to the Cape Crusader. Which version of the Cape Crusader will be decided, but until next time, I hope you all have a great night. Thank you all so much for watching, and of course, don't forget to take care of yourselves.
Happy holidays, everybody. And remember, friends don't let friends drive drunk.